Florence Villemino is ready to take us through the international front pages. Hello again. Lots of focus, I imagine, on that face-off in the British Parliament yesterday between Boris Johnson and the Prime Minister.
That's right. It's getting front page news in the UK, as you can imagine. Let's take a look at the front page of The Guardian. Prime Minister attacks Johnson over the Brexit. That's what's on the front page there of The Guardian. Now, speaking, of course, in Parliament, David Cameron essentially ridiculed Boris Johnson. That's how the press is described.
Furious attack.
Furious attack. Pretty much accused him of joining the Out campaign just to accomplish his dream of one day becoming Prime Minister. There's a cartoon in The Independent as well, which is mocking Boris Johnson for joining the Out campaign. They're calling it the Outums family, kind of like the Addams family. And you can see it's kind of an easy joke because of his hair, of course, but they're describing him as the cousin the one with all the hair.
Dear. Well, the Eurosceptic papers, meanwhile, have come to the Mayor of London's defence, haven't they?
That's right. If we take a look at the front page of the Daily Mail, which, remember, is a fan of David Cameron's, just not his European policy, you can see they're saying that Cameron has turned nasty. It was a savage attack on Boris Johnson, a revenge attack. It was jaw-dropping, lots of drama in the Daily Mail today. And they say that it was a low-grade attack that had an unhappy tone. Essentially, it looks like the Conservative Party is set for several months of civil war. So this is the Daily Mail's message to Boris Johnson. Well done, Boris Johnson, but watch your back.
Okay, meanwhile, papers outside Britain, they're also weighing in on this Brexit debate. Take us through some of the opinions stateside.
Well, very interestingly, the editorial in the Washington Post today is this: Britain should stay in the European Union. A British vote against the European Union would be a step into the dark. It would not only just hurt the British economy, its global influence, but also its ability to be a strategic partner for the United States. Of course, American papers are kind of looking at what a Brexit would mean for them. But this is interesting because this article, the editorial, says that the best case scenario is essentially to preserve the status quo. And the editorial says, what an unnecessary gamble.
Let's move on to Bolivia now, Flo. President Evo Morales has refused to accept defeat after the initial results of that referendum and whether or not he should be allowed to stand for a fourth term.
That's right. Now, the Electoral Board says that just about 80% of the votes have been counted. And you can see this is El Diario, a paper from Bolivia, talking about how the exit polls essentially give the victory to the no option. Now, Evo Morales says, let's hold out until all the votes are counted. But lots of papers are already saying it's a major electoral defeat for Evo Morales. If we take a look at the editorial in El Diario, lots of criticism for him today, saying that reminding readers when a president is sworn in, inaugurated, they're sworn in under the national flag, which is red, yellow, and green. And these colors represent all citizens of Bolivia. And El Diario says, it's my duty to remind the president that the colors of our country cannot be stained by this attempt to change the Constitution. And El Diario actually quotes the Constitution, as does Los Tiempos. Lots of quoting the Constitution in the Bolivian papers today. You can see here, this is their editorial. The Constitution cannot be modified. So lots of defense for the way things are currently in Bolivia. And this article actually encourages government officials to get back to work now because the country has pretty much been paralyzed by 3 months of campaigning around this referendum.
Meanwhile, papers are focusing on what this means for Evo Morales.
That's right. The Independent has an interesting piece which points out that it's quite a fall from grace for the president. He was, after all, Bolivia's first indigenous president. He built airports, highways. He put a satellite into space. He presided over a huge economic boom. But those boom days are over. And a lot of it has to do with the timing of the referendum. Just this month, Evo Morales was stung by a corruption scandal involving former lover of his. So the timing is wrong. Also, there's a real desire for change, though, in Bolivia. So you can see here the Independent saying it's an end of the line for this Bolivian leader who, after all, spent most of his presidency fighting for the poorest populations in Bolivia.
Let's finish up with a damning report on diversity in Hollywood, published in the run-up to the Oscars this Sunday.
That's right. Now, the Huffington Post has an interesting article that says, surprise, surprise, maybe not so surprising. This report on diversity in Hollywood confirms pretty much what we already know. Now, remember that in the last couple of months, the Academy Awards drew a lot of criticism for their lack of diversity at the all-white Oscars, as it's being called. But this report, which was carried out by the University of Southern California, essentially details the extent of lack of diversity in Hollywood. And I must admit, the results are crazy. Let's take a look at another article. This is the Guardian. You can see their title kind of sums it up, how the straight white boys club excludes the rest. For instance, women only make up 3% of film directors, 80% of directors are white, and 33.5% of speaking roles are for women. 28% are for ethnic minorities, 2% are for LGBT characters. Now, this report was carried out after watching more than 400 movies and TV shows, and it essentially describes what it calls an epidemic of invisibility for many parts of American society. Essentially, movies and TV shows just aren't representative of the way the United States is these days.
Deary me. Well, certainly that's a story that's going to keep rearing its ugly head in the run-up to those awards. Hopefully reports like that will lead to some change.
Hopefully.
At least. Thanks very much. Florence Filmino taking us through the international papers this morning.